Here we have a block, and we're going to use this block to actually show you what the design intent really means. Inherent design intent within ordered models. So this is a history-based model, so feature on top of feature. If we want to see how the part was actually created, we could go to our feature playback tool, and you can see first there was an extrude for the initial shape, then a cutout was added, and then a second cutout was added, and then the rounds were added. So this has some inherent design intent in that the shape was created. But what if later we wanted to make a modification? Now, instead of this center post being at the same height as the other two, maybe it needs to be 10 millimeters taller than the other two. The other thing that we may want to change is the overall width. It needs to be 100 millimeters wide, but this still needs to be 35, and it still needs to be at this 29.74 degree angle on the front face. The other modification that we want to make is this center post now needs to be 40 millimeters wide. But at the time we created this, remember the two cutouts were created because those are what was important at the time that this was created. And now the design intent has changed, and what's really important is this 40 millimeters wide. So first of all, let's address the initial problem of the width. So let's look at the first protrusion. Let's go into its profile. Turn off the PMI. You can see that there are some dimensions for the sketches, and what I want to do is make this 100 millimeters wide. And when I do that, you see what happened, that the angle changed because it pushed the right side of the part out instead of moving the left side of the profile. So that's not what I wanted to do. So what we want to do is lock this dimension. And I can't lock it because it would be over constrained, because the 40 plus the 35 is 75, and this is locked. So what I need to do is unlock this dimension and then go ahead and lock this so it cannot change, and then make our modification to 100. And you can see that it moved it in both directions, which is again not what I wanted to do. I wanted to just move the left side face. And that was because of this inherent relationship here of it always staying centered with the base coordinate system. So I'm going to delete that, and then if I make the modification, now I got the answer that I was looking for. So again, you really have to pay attention to how the part was built and the relationships that were created, even though they may not have been relationships that you really wanted to establish. They just happened to get established the way that it was drawn. Okay, so that was a straight extrude. Now we have another issue, that the cutout on the left does not go all the way through. Again, because whoever created this, when they created this cutout, they just probably dragged to a certain depth and didn't actually do through all for the extent. And because it is history based, it remembers how far they actually were when they clicked, and it establishes that as a depth. So now I'm going to have to change that to say through next in both directions to fix that. Alright, so now that that's fixed, the next thing that we wanted to change was the widths of the cutouts, because again I want this to be 40 millimeters wide. First thing I need to do is I'm going to turn off the PMI again. I'm going to go into the very first cutout. I'm going to edit its profile. And let's make that, first of all, this needs to be 30 millimeters wide, because I'm going to lose that 5 millimeters when I add the 5 millimeters to this side. Alright, very good. Now let's go into the second cutout, edit its profile. Again, the 40 millimeters is what's important. But I am going to have to subtract 5 from this to make sure that it stays the same. Alright, so I had to do a little bit of math to figure out how to make that 40 millimeters wide, and I don't really care about the width of the cutouts, which is what I did care about when I created it initially. So that looks correct. The next problem I'm going to have is trying to make this taller than the other two. So I'm going to have to probably draw a profile or something and extrude that up to make that taller. Before I do that though, I'm just going to show you how much easier this is in synchronous technology. Let's get out of this part completely. Let's reopen the part, and what I'm going to do is actually move all of this to synchronous. So we're going to move this to the new technology where I don't care how the model was built. So for instance, if I want to change this width, I'd simply select the dimension. You can see the blue face that is highlighted. That's the one that's going to change when I make that modification, which is what I wanted all along. Very quick and easy. What about the width? Easy. Pick the dimension for the width because I care about that, and make it 40. Symmetry kicks in, maintains the symmetry about the center. If I wanted to maintain the 35mm cutout, let me undo that back, I could come in here and I could lock these two dimensions so that they cannot be changed. And what that does is when I go ahead and move this, it's going to go ahead and move those out as well, maintain that 35mm. So you change your design intent on the fly. Whatever you want to change, you just go ahead and change it. Now we're worried about that height of the center post. If I click on that center post and I begin to drag, of course it finds that it is coplanar with the other two faces. If I don't want that, I just simply turn off the coplanar design intent. I'm just going to use the P on the keyboard here, and you can see that now I can move that independently however I want, change that design intent on the fly, which is really, really powerful functionality. If I want to change this angle, simply select the dimension, point to which side I want to move. Let's change it to 35. Okay, very quick and easy to make those modifications however we want to change the model. So synchronous technology really gives you flexibility in design intent to make modifications however you want.